Hello, I'm Andrew, and this is my Series 3 of the weekly podcasts 50 Ways to Succeed at Work. These podcasts build confidence and know-how. Consequently, they can help you achieve happiness at work. By the way, that's also the title of my book, available at Amazon and from the book's website, My Happiness at Work. Now for today's episode in Series 3. This is episode 12 in Series 3, 50 Ways to Succeed at Work. Got a toxic work colleague? Here's how to clean up. One toxic colleague is all it takes to destroy your train of thought, interrupt your workflow, damage your entire team, or cause mayhem. Let me share 3 real-life toxic stories. Ready? Toxic story number 1 occurs in a bustling corporate office. Grace works with a co-worker named Mark. His negativity permeates her team and affects everyone's morale. Instead of avoiding him, though, Grace takes a different approach. She invites Mark for coffee, listens without judgment, and offers support. Over time, their conversation moves from work stress to shared interests. Grace's compassion and understanding helps detoxify the office environment, fostering empathy and teamwork. Toxic story number 2 takes place in a high-pressure tech startup. David's neighbour Sarah constantly invades his space and interrupts his focus. David decides to set some boundaries. He politely explains that he needs uninterrupted work time and suggests specific hours for collaboration. Initially, Sarah resists, but eventually respects his boundaries. Their relationship improves and the toxic tension disappears. Toxic story number 3 involves Mariah, a project manager. She notices that negativity is spreading like wildfire. She suggests a weekly gratitude circle during team meetings. Each member shares something positive about a colleague. Initially met with skepticism, this soon becomes a cherished tradition. Toxic energy declines as people's gratitude replaces complaints. Her simple yet powerful action transforms the team's dynamics. Let's look at toxicity more closely. What might a toxic worker actually do? Well, there's the person who keeps complaining, the gossiper with their harmful chit-chat, the credit stealer, the micro-aggressor, the bystander who sees things are wrong but says nothing. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to tackling toxic behaviour. It takes courage, empathy, and some simple action steps. While you can't simply flush away workplace toxicity, you can take steps to protect yourself and maintain a healthy environment. Let's explore how to do this. Your manager or supervisor has some power to address toxicity. However, if a toxic person works with you daily, you may have to act yourself rather than relying on senior management. Toxic colleagues have the annoying ability to press one's emotion button. They may achieve this by demanding too much attention or grabbing more than their fair share of airtime. Why not develop a definite strategy rather than exploding each time or sinking into a sullen, resentful silence? Strategies can include setting boundaries, documenting incidents, avoiding escalation, seeking support, and many other ways. Regarding boundaries, for example, decide what behaviour you'll tolerate and what you won't. Then you politely but firmly explain these boundaries to the toxic colleague. For example, I prefer not to engage in negative conversations, or I can't do this right now, come back to me tomorrow. You can also document incidents. Record toxic behaviour with dates, times and specific occasions. Such information can be helpful if you need to escalate the issue to HR or management. An escalation strategy means you try to resolve minor issues directly with the colleague. You address their behaviour calmly and professionally. You also need to avoid gossiping about other colleagues with other co-workers, which could make the situation worse. Since your escalation strategy will most likely involve a direct conversation with a toxic colleague, use I statements to express how their actions impact you. For example, I feel uncomfortable when, or I would prefer it if you didn't do that. Yet another viable detoxifying strategy is to seek support. You talk to a trusted coworker or a friend about your experiences. Venting and sharing your frustrations can be cathartic. Or it may be helpful to adopt a self-care strategy. Since toxic colleagues can drain your energy, investing in self-care is a good way to maintain your well-being. Finally, consider involving HR or management. Admittedly, it's a last resort if the situation doesn't improve, and you can provide evidence from your documentation to support your case. It's important to be self-aware. Remember, toxic behaviour is not your fault. You deserve a healthy work environment. So prioritize your well-being and take steps to protect yourself. Most of us have little time for self-awareness in a busy working life. As a team player, for example, you may not realize that something you say or do triggers a negative response from a toxic coworker and sets them off. Make sure that you're not contributing to the toxic behavior yourself. Be the role model for how you want the person to act. Set a standard that shows collaboration and open dialogue, not retaliation. The more you focus on team goals, the more you'll be able to rely on a candid conversation or get the team to help with the issue, not just leaving it to you. And what are your reactions to toxic behavior? Well, they can take many forms, such as reaction number 1, you might forgive the other person. Now that's a big ask, since your feeling towards the toxic person may range from dislike to indifference and sometimes murderous resentment in real life. Reaction number 2 is to separate actions from emotions. Review your feelings one by one, and can you identify why these emotions shape your reactions and subsequent behavior? For instance, have you complained to colleagues or given the toxic person the cold shoulder? Once you know what you're up against, you can deal with the toxic person differently and hopefully more productively. Reaction number 3 is worth considering as a whole story. You take a step back and rethink. Are you ignoring certain factors? For example, could you be inadvertently contributing to the problem? Are you being unfair? This reaction involves changing your mindset about the situation and your colleague. In other words, you reframe the issue to help you deal with the problem more effectively. Other reactions to toxic behavior may require special attention, such as empathy. This means understanding other people's perspectives and practicing active listening. Empathy can help diffuse harmful situations and foster better communication. Finally, the most helpful response to toxic behavior is to build allies. Create links with co-workers who share similar experiences with this toxic work person. Their involvement can provide practical and emotional support. For example, women in the Obama administration in America supported each other when they felt their views were being drowned out or dismissed by more assertive or male colleagues. And finally, set your boundaries. What will you tolerate? A toxic colleague forces you to set clear boundaries. Boundaries don't make you rude. Instead, they help preserve your well-being and maintain a healthier work environment. You may need to set limits around time, personal space, communication, tasks, emotions, and so on. And my final thoughts? Each workplace is unique, and not all anti-toxic strategies will work since they depend on a specific context. Handling these awkward people can help build your success at work. You've been listening to an episode of Series 3 of my weekly podcast, 50 Ways to Succeed at Work. You can hear the other podcasts at the 50ways.site. That's 50.site. There are nearly 100 titles, and you can search for any issue that interests you. If you have any questions, you can always drop me a line from there. Also, check out my book, Happiness at Work. It's packed with great stories, compelling advice, and suggestions for tackling real issues that you can encounter at work. It's at Amazon or at the book's website, myhappinessatwork.com. There's also an audio version if you prefer listening. Join me next week for another unmissable episode in Series 3. Bye for now.